Sitting 3 feet away from the woman who raised me, I listened as she calmly explained to a judge that I was completely losing my mind. She wore a diamond watch that belonged to my late father, using his money to fund the luxury lifestyle she enjoyed. I did not shed a single tear or show weakness, because I knew a dark secret she was desperately trying to hide. That cold morning inside a packed probate courtroom in Atlanta, Georgia, my entire family sat behind us nodding in total agreement with her fabricated stories. Meredith, my stepmother, had spent months convincing everyone that I was emotionally unstable and incapable of handling my own life. They looked at me with deep pity, completely unaware that I was silently counting down the minutes until her world collapsed. Meredith entered our lives when I was 11 years old, marrying my father less than a year after my mother passed away from a painful illness. She arrived with a hollow smile and an ambition that focused entirely on the immense wealth my grandfather built decades ago. Over 17 years, she systematically isolated my father from his closest friends, turning him into a prisoner of her greed. When my father suffered a sudden, fatal stroke 14 months ago, the true battle for the family legacy finally began. While I held his hand during his final moments at the hospital, Meredith was out in the waiting room calling his financial advisor to secure his assets. She believed she would inherit everything, but the updated will stated the $4 million estate belonged solely to me. Meredith discovered the draft of the new will before he passed and secretly began siphoning funds out of the primary operating account. She stole over $300,000 in small increments, expecting me to react with rage and emotional outbursts when I discovered the theft. She wanted to use my natural anger as absolute proof that I was mentally incompetent to manage the fortune. What Meredith did not realize was that I worked as a senior forensic auditor for a major corporate fraud investigation firm. Instead of screaming or confronting her immediately, I quietly moved into a tiny studio apartment and drove an old car while tracking her movements. Every single night, I analyzed the bank transfers, tracing the stolen cash directly to 3 hidden shell companies. The shell companies were registered in Wyoming under deceptive names like Bluebird Properties and Legacy Management to conceal the true owner. I compiled an extensive digital trail containing Internet Protocol addresses, bank statements, and corporate filings that proved her direct involvement. I watched her steal in real time, waiting for the perfect moment to present the undeniable evidence to the legal authorities. Realizing that I was not reacting to her financial games, Meredith launched her final attack by filing an emergency petition to become my legal conservator. She hired a corrupt psychologist named Dr. Gilbert Moss, who wrote a fraudulent mental evaluation without ever conducting an interview with me. Now, her attorney, Douglas Thorne, stood before Judge Alderman, claiming I was a danger to my own survival. The attorney presented falsified documents to the bench, claiming the trust lost immense value due to my severe financial neglect. Meredith dabbed her dry eyes with a pre-crumpled tissue, whispering that she only wanted to protect the vulnerable daughter of her late husband. The relatives in the gallery whispered among themselves, fully convinced that I was a broken soul who needed her guidance. When the judge asked for my response, I stood up calmly, buttoned my jacket, and requested permission to approach the bench with my findings. I carried a thick black binder organized with colored tabs that detailed every single transaction Meredith executed over the past year. As I placed the heavy files down, the confident smile instantly vanished from the face of my stepmother. I explained to the judge that the missing $300,000 did not vanish through my neglect, but through deliberate fraud. The shell companies belonged entirely to Meredith, who eventually transferred the money into a private brokerage account. That account was shared with Garrett Hayes, a real estate agent with whom she was having a secret relationship while my father was alive. The ultimate blow came when I pointed out the yellow tab containing a letter, supposedly signed by my deceased father, granting her full authority. A certified document examiner confirmed the signature was a digital forgery lifted from an old property tax document. Even worse, the digital file metadata proved the document was created by Douglas Thorne inside his law office days after the funeral. Though, Courtroom erupted into total chaos as the attorney and Meredith immediately began blaming each other in front of the stunned judge. Douglas Thorne turned pale and sweated through his shirt, while Meredith shouted that the entire plan was the idea of her lawyer. Judge Alderman slammed his gavel down, completely disgusted by the massive deception that had unfolded inside his courtroom. The judge immediately denied the conservatorship petition with prejudice and referred the entire matter to federal and state prosecutors for criminal prosecution. Meredith and her attorney faced severe charges of grand theft, forgery, and aggravated perjury for lying under oath. Within weeks, their bank accounts were frozen. The stolen funds were recovered, and Douglas Thorne faced total disbarment. Outside the courtroom, my Aunt Beatrice approached me with tears streaming down her face, begging for my forgiveness. She admitted that Meredith had manipulated the entire family for months with heartbreaking stories about my declining mental health. I told her that I understood because master manipulators always construct an alternate reality that easily captures innocent people who do not know the truth. Meredith eventually accepted a favorable plea deal and received a 6-year prison sentence, while her boyfriend received home confinement for his participation. I used a large portion of the recovered wealth to establish a permanent scholarship fund at Spelman College to honor the memory of my mother. I also adopted a resilient 3-legged dog named Justice, who brought true happiness back into my life. Now, I visit the quiet grave of my mother under a beautiful oak tree, finally feeling the deep peace that I fought so hard to achieve. True strength is not about shouting or reacting out of anger when people betray your trust. It is about staying perfectly still, documenting the facts, and allowing the corrupt to destroy themselves with their own elaborate traps.